morning, everyone. This is Samuel Gunter with the North Carolina Housing Coalition, and welcome to the housing call this morning. Spring has officially sprung. It's been officially spring for a while, but the pollen's everywhere, and Wolfpack fans are howling out of car doors all over the state. So welcome to the housing call. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Watkins-Cruz, our policy director. Stephanie?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I think everyone is a Wolfpack fan right now in North Carolina. At least I am. I've changed colors temporarily. It's been awesome to see that. I will kick off the call with a few organizational updates, but we do have a special guest today. So just to get the organizational updates out of the way, for those that have been following our Learning Collaborative sessions, we have 2 more remaining. One on May 3rd and one on May 17th. And so we'll open registration for those soon. Also, the registration for our Bringing It Home conference is now open. That conference will be June 4th and the 5th. Remember, we will be in person. And then mark your calendars for September 5th through the 6th for our North Carolina Affordable Housing Conference. And without further ado, I just want to intro our special guest. And kind of why we are doing this interview at the moment. So the North Carolina Housing Coalition, we are really excited to celebrate the founding of the North Carolina Tenants Union. Back in 2020, we identified a lack of a statewide tenant advocate as a critical gap in the North Carolina's housing movement. And in response, we began building relationships with independent tenant unions across the state through our Director of Organizing, Nick McLeod. While incubating this network over the last 4 years, we provided both training and resources to existing unions across the state in their local efforts, while also connecting them with each other for statewide impact. The formal launch of the North Carolina Tenants Union fulfills a really key part of our strategic plan to grow the housing movement so that we can win the state and local housing policies we need, backed by the resources that meet the scale of the need. And we really look forward to a continued partnership with the North Carolina Tenants Union as we continue to lead a movement to ensure that every North Carolinian has a home in which to live with dignity and opportunity. So I'm really excited now to welcome now the Executive Director of the North Carolina Tenants Union, Nick McLeod. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
No problem. Could you go ahead and just, kick us off? Tell us a little bit more about the North Carolina Tenants Union from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you just said, today is our official launch, and we've been working on building this network of tenant unions around the state for the past 4 years. So we're going to be launching with 6 local tenant unions that are in Asheville, Winston-Salem, Charlotte, the Triangle, New Bern, and Wilmington. Across the union, our locals are organizing in public housing, subsidized housing, private apartments, and mobile home parks. And our core work is building strong organizations with tenants that can win repairs, stop displacement, and empower tenants to control their living situations. And many of our locals are also driving local policy campaigns to win right to counsel and eviction court, or expand local code enforcement infrastructure, or working on things like democratizing public housing authority. And a little bit just in terms of our structure, a thing that we're really proud of is that we're a democracy. So to be a local of the North Carolina Tenants Union, the local organizations have to be internally democratic and be tenant-led. And then our governing board is made up entirely of elected representatives from the locals. And so we're really excited to be building something that's going to be directly accountable to the folks who are really on the front lines of these fights.
That's amazing. Could you, I think on that same note, talking about all that important work and how important it is to center the tenant, but also to have it be tenant-led, why does tenant organizing matter for the housing movement, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the core piece here, right, is that the housing crisis isn't a crisis because we don't know how to fix it, right? The issue isn't that we don't have good policy ideas. There's a million blog posts that you have written that I could point people to that we should implement as law right away, right? The issue is that there are groups that are benefiting from the status quo, and often policymakers are listening to those groups more than they're listening to the folks who are directly affected. And to make those policymakers listen to get those policies we need, we're going to need a lot of people. And so our analysis is that tenant organizing is the crucial step that's going to build the power needed so we can implement those good policies. And broadly, we've seen that this process has about 4 steps, which are that first, we recruit people into organization around their immediate compelling needs. Right? It's pretty hard to build mass movement around complex and nuanced policy prescriptions, especially when people are preoccupied because, there's roaches in their kitchen, right? And so we focus on what's the immediate compelling need, then work with folks to build effective organizations on the ground to meet those needs. And through that process, people learn that they're not alone, that these problems are systemic, and they learn the concrete skills about how to build and drive organizations. And then third is that in winning those concrete wins, those meaningful improvements, what that does is not just bolster people's sense of I have power and I can change my living situation, but also just meaningfully stabilizes their lives, right? And that opens up time and space for them to be able to invest into these broader fights. And through that process, we're integrating ongoing political education so that we get into this 4th step where folks can integrate into these broader policy fights, and we can bring to that the mass numbers of folks that are going to be necessary to meet the scale of this crisis.
I really appreciate that explanation, because I do think, and often, right, as a policy nerd, right, I have to think about different ways to engage and frame issues, but there's nothing, it's really hard to beat immediate needs, right? So to be able to address those short-term needs, but then to also, start from that position, that creates a really, I think, genuine and important path to joining the housing movement from a place that I think is really honest and really important, and a perspective that's really valuable to have. I just have 2 more questions for you. What are some of the short-term and long-term goals that you all have moving forward, right? What are some of the outcomes that you want to pursue?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the short term, we've got a bunch of local campaigns that are in a strong position, and we're hoping to see some wins in the next 6 months to a year. So our locals in Winston and Charlotte are working on securing funds for right to counsel and eviction court. And in Winston, I think a few weeks back, we got a majority of the incoming city council to commit to fully funding the program. So we're excited to see that through. We're working on expanding code enforcement capacity in New Bern. We're in several campaigns around democratizing public housing authorities around the state, and around organizing with mobile home park residents to stop displacement in the Triangle. And in the coming months, we're going to be launching a few new campaigns around local tenants' bills of rights that we're really excited about, we think can help shift the landscape. In the long term, our goal is to dramatically expand tenants' rights in North Carolina. That is going to require some major changes to the state law, and will include protections against arbitrary eviction and rent gouging. We're also working to proliferate democratic housing models across North Carolina through supporting tenants to win control of their buildings or their mobile home parks and convert them into co-ops, or by securing strong collectively negotiated leases so that we can demonstrate that there's a whole variety of different housing models that folks can use to much more concretely control their housing, as we are also engaging in these bigger state-level policy fights.
So you don't have a long to-do list at all. Sounds like.
Yeah, easy. Yeah, no problem at all. Exactly.
Well, last but not least, and initially I was gonna say, man, I really am gonna miss Nick, but I don't need to say that because I'm really excited to be able to see how this grows, and really glad to know you, right, and still be able to figure out how we can work together, in the future. So, before our listeners, how can people engage with you or the
Yeah,
community?
of course, of course. So the first thing is that folks can go to our newly launched website. It's nctenantsunion.org. There you can learn much more about our locals and get in touch directly with a statewide union or be referred to a local. And then also folks can reach out to me directly. My email is nmcleod. It's MACLEOD. It's a little bit of a wonky spelling at nctenantsunion.org. And I would love to engage with folks and talk more with everyone about how we're going to keep building this movement together.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick, so much for joining us, and look forward to hopefully catching up with you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, everyone. I'm going to kick it off with, or continue the call with federal updates. I'm actually doing this call from D.C., so hope to have some good conversations today with some staffers from our North Carolina delegation of our representatives. The Biden administration is expected to announce a 10% cap on annual rent increases for affordable housing in the low-income housing tax credit program. Some housing experts are worried that the cap will further disincentivize affordable housing development due to, of course, the development costs themselves. However, the move is also generally seen as a policy win in other circles and serves as one of the many actions that this administration is trying to take in order to increase protections for federally subsidized housing. The administration has also recently announced, in partnership with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, over $173 million in new grant and loan awards under its Green and Resilient Retrofit program. Under this program, about 25 properties participating in HUD's Project-Based Rental Assistance Affordability Program have received awards in order to assist with energy efficiency improvements and protection against flooding and other major disasters. In North Carolina, Clinton Crossing in Clinton, North Carolina, was awarded $2.56 million. Moving on to state updates, please don't forget, if you are interested, to submit your public comments on the proposed changes to funding for the Hurricane Florence recovery and funding for resiliency against future storms. If you submit your comments by April 15th, please do so to publiccomments@rebuild.nc.gov, or you can send them by mail, and we'll include the address and PO box in the call notes for you. The draft of the proposed changes that are being considered can be found in our call notes, and they're available in both English and Spanish. These changes are going to possibly impact spending on various programs from homeowner recovery to affordable housing, the Affordable Housing Development Fund, the Infrastructure Recovery Program, and a few others. In state legislative updates, today the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Medicaid is meeting at 1 p.m. And this morning, the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Health and Human Services is meeting as well. The North Carolina House and Senate will be convening tomorrow on April 10th, but remember, short session does not formally begin until April 24th, which I cannot believe is really not that far away. In local community updates, there have been several communities having forums and roundtables and discussing what they can do locally to address their affordable housing needs. Cherokee County is one of those places. They recently hosted their second regional housing forum where they talked about solutions about the growing need for affordable housing, as well as updates on the affordable rental and homeownership projects that they have in the pipeline. A few of the solutions that they have implemented at the county include a first-time home buyer down payment assistance program, a few changes to their land use ordinances in terms of rezoning to allow for middle housing, as well as trying to streamline the ADU review process with pre-approved plans and transitional housing for women and children. The town of Chapel Hill was recently awarded $1.5 million in community projects or earmark funding that Congresswoman Valerie Fishee has requested from Congress for the Tanyard Branch Trace Affordable Housing Development. So this development is with a partnership between the town, the Community Home Trust, and Taft Mills Group. It will include 48 apartments that are affordable to families earning at or below 60% of the area median income. And the project is also financed by a 9% LIHTC credit from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency and additional funding from the town. There is an additional link in that update for you to see all the lists, all the different projects that have received earmark funds, if you wanted to check that out. Also, on our coast, the Outer Banks and the Outer Banks, Dare County Tax Department is accepting property tax relief applications currently from qualifying seniors and homeowners with disabilities. If you want to learn more, if you're in that area or you know someone who may be able to benefit, we've included the links to the application as well as more information about the program in our call notes. The applications are being accepted until June 1st. We have several research pieces and reports that I would love to list up, but due to time, I'll just list up one. It's a little lengthy, but I think it really does a good job setting some historical context and bringing it into modern-day impact from the Bipartisan Policy Center, exploring the affordable housing shortages impact on American workers, jobs, and the economy. So check out that piece, and we have a few others surrounding unlocking housing choice, as well as homelessness in the United States. In terms of events, later today from 12 to 1:30, the Tax Policy Center is hosting a webinar looking at racial disparities in tax subsidies for homeownership. And then also a big one to list up is a webinar hosted by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and the National Alliance to End Homelessness, as well as the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. This will be happening next week, April 9th, from 2 to 3 p.m., and they'll be hosting a webinar on the Supreme Court and the criminalization of homelessness, especially due to the upcoming Supreme Court decision on that specific matter. And then in the news, we have a shelter force piece talking about how soaring property insurance rates threaten affordable housing development. If you recall, that's definitely been a topic of conversation in North Carolina, and that's something we still have not taken our eyes off of. So make sure to check out that link in the call notes when our recording and notes go out. There's several other pieces, but I'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much to our special guest, Nick. If you want to check out more about the North Carolina Tenants Union and their work, we'll include the link in the call notes. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.